And thanks for staying with us. This is The Pulse, brought to you by Global Communities Digny Lu. We're on your DSTV channel 421. And this afternoon, there are fears for the safety of Ghanaians and other nationals in the Republic of Niger, as residents, especially Ghanaians there, say they have received threats of an attack or a possible one from the Nigerians following preparations by the economic community of West African states to use military force to restore democracy in Niger. The country was taken over by a military regime after seizing power from the democratically elected president. Military chiefs of ECOWAS countries have been meeting in Abuja, Nigeria, deliberating on the political situation in the sub-region, and they say they have no choice but to send troops to deal with the situation. Well, I've been looking at the discussions happening after day one of the meeting, which will be wrapping up in the next 24 hours. Authority of ECOWAS heads of states and government at their extraordinary session held on the 30th of July 2023 in Abuja, Nigeria, resolved to use all necessary means to restore constitutional order, including the deployment of an ECOWAS military force if the democratically elected president Mohamed Bazoum is not reinstated by the Presidential Guard, which seized power last week. In furtherance of these directives, a committee of chiefs of defense staff of ECOWAS member states are holding an extraordinary meeting on the political situation in the Republic of Niger from now until the 4th of August 2023. Christopher Musa is Chief of Defense Staff for the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The political instability in Niger is a source of grave concern for us all. It threatens our shared vision of a peaceful, secure, and prosperous West Africa, a vision that is impossible to achieve amidst political upheavals and disruptions to constitutional order. The task of restoring democratic governance in Niger is fraught with potential hurdles and complications. However, we cannot afford to be hamstrung by these challenges. Instead, we must confront them head-on, drawing upon our shared experiences, wisdom, and the strength of our collective resolve.
Niger's new military ruler quickly reacted by lashing out at neighboring countries and the chiefs of defense staff, as well as the international community, in a nationally televised speech Wednesday night. General Abdurrahmani Chiani warned against any form of foreign meddling and military intervention against the coup d'etat.
Regarding certain foreign partner powers, we, like the overwhelming majority of the people of Niger, were surprised by their eagerness to condemn the seizure of power by the National Council of the Safeguarding of the country, to pronounce sanctions against Niger and its people, and to put a de facto end to their security cooperation. This hostile and radical attitude brings no added value neither in the resolution of the new situation born of the seizure of power by the National Council for the safeguarding of the country, nor of our hitherto common fight against terrorism.
It is unclear the manner in which ECOWAS intends to deploy its forces into the Republic of Niger. However, Joy News is learning that the Ghana Armed Forces will contribute their troops once the green light is given. Dominic Nitu is Minister for Defense.
ECOWAS has given the junta a one-week ultimatum to hand over or face severe consequences, including the use of force. After the 1 week, we will seek the direction of the presidents exactly what they will do. But I can say that the member states are ready.
Meanwhile, the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security of the ECOWAS Commission, Abdel Fattah Musa, tells Joy News that it is worrying that terrorism has implanted itself in the West Africa sub-region, and the trend, he says, is growing towards the coastal states.
Economic Community of West African States, that's ECOWAS, used to be the poster boy of regional economic communities that were the best regarded, in the world. That is ECOWAS, the ECOWAS in the 1990s, what we did, trying very hard to stop civil wars, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and others, and then overseeing the gradual the installation of democracy in West Africa. Almost all countries in West Africa have democratically elected presidents. And then come in the in the region, that in the past 3 years or so, we've had about 8 successful and unsuccessful coups in the West Africa region. The reasons are multifaceted, and and I think this is what we have to look at. Terrorism has implanted itself in our sub-region, and as you are in Accra, you know the situation of refugees in the northern part of Ghana today. Benin is being targeted, Togo is targeted, Cote d'Ivoire is targeted. So terrorism is descending toward the coastal states of the Gulf of Guinea.
Well, so exactly what's the situation as we speak in the SAP region, and what's been the worry for experts looking at the data that we have? Let's bring you some of the figures as we have them on this current situation. 84 attempts since 1990, 43 of them successful so far between that period that we're looking at within that year alone. It was known as a crisis period within the 90s when, of course, the sub-regional body ECOWAS wanted to restore order. They succeeded at some point, but then moving on, we know that 26 alone, of course, was a situation that we dealt with between 1990 and 1999. Moving into the next decade of 2000-2009, the West Africa sub-region was dealing, and specifically talking continent-wide, we're dealing with about 36 of them, 13 between 2000 and 2009. And when you put these two figures together, you would obviously be getting the tabulation of over 40 cases that we're dealing with. But within the sub-region alone, 5 countries are under the control and entire regime that is known to be military. But how do we avert this, and how do we restore stability to the West Africa area? Let's bring in Dr. Ishmael Hulavo, a political and international relations expert, joining us here for a discussion on this. We'll be connecting to Abuja as well together very late as well. We understand that there's a demonstration as we speak, pro-coup demonstration. That's the report we're getting. We'll find out more shortly. Dr. Hulavo, thank you for spending some time with us. So the ECOWAS military chiefs indicating that they have, of course, obviously no choice now but to just go ahead with the directives given by the heads of states. Do you feel that force is the way out of this?
Good afternoon, and then good afternoon to your viewers. Force as a means of restoring democracy have quite an unpredictable end, because in any conflict situation where you have to use arms, no matter how you think that your opponent is not well armed, you cannot predict the end from the beginning. I also of results in this because
Dr. Hulavo, we seem to be losing you intermittently. Doc, if you can hear me, just take that point for us again, because we are losing you intermittently. Doctor, yes,
can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Yeah, I just lost you briefly. If you could just take the point for us again. If you could take that point for us again.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm saying that as you can see the situation unfolding in Niger, the use of force is quite going to be difficult from where I'm standing, because there clearly seems to be a constituency in Niger that seems to have the support of the coup makers. And so you are not only going to deal with the military, you also have to deal with that constituency that may well be armed. And that opened the room for other actors within the sub-region, particularly the terrorist organization, to also make a claim for themselves, because they would then try to have situation and plan in there. Then you also have to deal with who are feeling that any attempt to restore the elected leader by force also means that then they are also at risk, and they may want to lend their support to this coup makers. Then again, you must look at the geopolitical issues at play. If you look at it clearly, it seems that France has played a role that the people of Niger are not quite comfortable with. And therefore, they seem to be chanting slogans of Russia. And so we are clearly seeing that the geopolitical tension across the globe is already taking root in our sub-region. So these coups will become more and more because of this particular geopolitical issue. Formerly, you have a purely Western system where they could force any coup leader to hand over power. But now you have other powers who, their operation, do not actually meddle in your internal affairs, and that will be difficult. So I would say that the use of the military is not going to go the way as we are predicting, because then there will be also people at the other side who are resisting. So it's not going to be an easy task as we are seeing. So you may even take the war in Ukraine as an example, where Russia thought that they could go in there and quickly come out, but then it ended up being a protracted war. So the question then to the military chiefs is how prepared are they to take down the military of Niger? Now, if they are even able to take down the military, then we have the situation, will it be a purely ECOWAS effort? Will there be resources from other regions? Where would those resources be coming from? If these resources will be mobilized from the Western world, France, for instance, then it will be problematic. Then you may draw in other powers that may feel that they need to defend those who they think are aligned to them. So you may end up opening more room for the middling of these major powers in the sub-region. So I think that diplomatic efforts should continue, of course, in Niger, in Mali, Burkina Faso. There have been engagement, and engagement are continuing. So I think the same sanctions have been imposed. So I think that there should be engagement. For the use of force, I'm not sure it will produce the result that we are all looking for.
Okay, but my concern also is about Ghanaians living in Niger. They've confirmed to us that at least they've received threats, and the fact that if ECOWAS goes ahead to deploy its forces as they are threatening, then they will be the casualties, because obviously they'll be held, hostage by the military regime there. That's the fear, at least, that we're getting from Ghanaian nationals there. Do you feel that this is the time for the foreign ministry to consider a possible repatriation? At least we've seen France do that.
Of course, if you are Ghana is part of ECOWAS, so if ECOWAS is mobilizing to intervene in the situation militarily, I'm not sure that the operation will go so swiftly that you quickly get the coup leader and all the big guns arrested, and then the military will just surrender. So you have to get your citizens out of there. If the plan to intervene militarily will go on, then of course they must be evacuated, because if it happens that ECOWAS goes in there and meet resistance, then it turns out to be a full-blown war. Civilians will be hit, and Ghanaians living there will become casualties. Not only caught in crossfire, but of course the people of Niger, and of course the military of Niger, will see them as part of those who are fighting them, because your government is at war with them. What it means is that once we join ECOWAS to try to intervene militarily, to kind of restore the democratically elected government there, the coup makers would declare all the countries involved as enemies, and therefore your citizens as enemies. As you see, the ordinary people on the street demonstrating in Niger are also targeting foreigners, and therefore ECOWAS citizens will become targets once the plan of ECOWAS coming in militarily is confirmed. That means that your government is against them, and therefore they will become victims of some forms of attack. So it is important for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to consider bringing them home if the plan to intervene militarily will go on. We need to get them out. And these are some of the implications of it. It seems like as ECOWAS, we are virtually militarizing the cooperation, in the sense that if you take on Niger and you are able able to force them kind of restore the elected leader, you have not solved some of the underlying causes of the coups, such as the general thing of democracy within the region. And indeed, when we talk about democratic backsliding, there are various indicators of it. Some of the established democracies under elected leaders in this survey today are virtually backsliding. When you have countries where elections are already won before they are organized, that is not democracy. If you don't deal with that, if you don't call out those countries openly and deal with those issues, you will end up on the ultimate of coup d'etats. If journalists are being tormented in their work and you don't deal with it, you will have the ultimate of coup. So coup is just a gradual graduation of some of these backsliding of democracy. So ECOWAS must look for structures that would address some of these backsliding issues. If you don't deal with the underlying issues, then you will continue to have to intervene militarily to stop coups, because coups don't happen overnight. It takes built up of so many issues to lead to the ultimate where somebody thinks that the condition is conducive and I'll get forth when I organize coup.
Right.
So, for instance,
yes,
government have to address various democratic institutions.
Here's the point. Over the weekend, we didn't pay too much attention to it, but it's instructive to know that our president was part of the meeting over the weekend on Sunday. He's supervised, chaired the community, ECOWAS, and during his time, at least we recorded two major incidents in terms of military takeover. Do you feel that he should have brought his expertise to bear, knowing that, using force, as the experts are telling us, may not be the smooth way out of this?
Of course, it also depends on how he also assesses this particular. Every coup situation is different. Every coup situation, the country, the dynamics may be different. Perhaps looking at Niger, maybe calculating the military strength and other variables, they think that it will be expedient to enter there and do what they want to do. Maybe those conditions did not exist in the other cases. But if you look at some of the issues that crop up during President Akufo-Addo's tenure as ECOWAS chairman that he was able to deal with, if you look at the settlement he entered in Togo, now that settlement virtually allowed Yadema to continue ruling, virtually allowing the term limit to go. You see, when you settle some of these issues like this, you create a room where people would then begin to doubt the democratic enterprise. Because ECOWAS must begin to enforce certain things like term limits. When your tenure is over, there's no need. Either you must not even attempt to add the constitution. If you enforce this kind of things, then people know that, well, there's no room for manipulation. So I think that, yes, he could have brought his expertise to bear on this particular one and pursue them not to go the military way, but perhaps given the information that they are provided to him and how they intend to go about the operation. So far, we don't know how it will be. It may be just some undercover operation where a group of expert soldiers enter there and then get the coup leader arrested and his inner circle and are able to, maybe that's one way of doing it. Maybe the information provided, they have convinced him that, well, the military option is a viable option. Of course, military option may also be just a way of putting pressure on the regime. It may not be necessarily intervening directly. It may be just a way of stirring up the pressure. So saying that, okay, if you don't hand over power, we will intervene militarily. So yes, sometimes that's about talk, but I think that he may still have the chance to try and see if they can talk with the coup leaders in Niger, and at least listen to what complaints they have that led to the coup, what are the issues, and if there are ways of addressing it in a way that will have some sort of a negotiated settlement where the former president may be brought back, and those issues that they thought made it very necessary to have the coup will also be addressed.
Right. Here's the point. The military chiefs at least have some 24 hours of grace period, if you want to call it as that, because the meeting officially will be ending tomorrow. Would you want them to withdraw at this point? Maybe just protect our borders instead of going in?
Well, as I said, they have most of the military strategies. They have one of their plans. They have, because I'm sure before they want to go in, they want to understand. They have understood the military might of Niger. They have understood the weaponry that they are also commanding. And for me, I would say that they could extend the time and give room for more negotiation. Of course, you set your own time. It's not bad when you extend it and allow room for negotiation. So that you could try and see if maybe a more a country that's more friendly to the coup makers can intervene and try and see if there's a certain condition under which they are ready to hand over power. But as it is now, they have set their own deadline. Yes, as I said, they could go back and look at it and say, okay, let's give them more time and see if they will respond to negotiation. So, but for me, I think that they should hold back. They should not intervene militarily, particularly if a foreign power will be involved. If a foreign power like France will be involved, then it's virtually play into the hands of the kind of situation that we don't want in the sub-region, where major powers will be intervening in our domestic affairs. It will strengthen some of the other powers who have allies within the region to kind of try and pushing them in terms of providing more military weaponry for them, so that in the event of some of these things, they will be able to stand it at home.
I see.
So,
yeah.
even if they will go in, I would advise that there should be no foreign assistance.
Here's the point. Very often, and I've heard a number of experts, including some of the commissioners at ECOWAS. We're just speaking to the Commissioner for Political Affairs yesterday, who's pointing out that governance is at the core of all of this. But we're the same people who queue up, who vote for these leaders. So why is there disconnect, really?
There's a disconnect. You see, there's an expectation when you are voting. Now, the expectation generally is that by voting for somebody, at least my material conditions will be improved. Now, what has happened over the years is that most of the democracy have been centered around elections. And therefore, our leaders assume that once you win the election, you have the license to do whatever you want to do. And so they are not paying attention to the critical issues that are confronting their citizenry. So you have a sub-region with a very youthful population, and much of this population is unemployed. And therefore, frustration is getting into the system. And as we always said, when there's frustration, there's always the likelihood of aggression. So you are having a situation where once you win an election, it's assumed that you are democratically elected, therefore you have the license to do whatever you are doing. And the quality of some of the elections is just not there, where incumbents are able to kind of manipulate the system and get those they want to be elected. So when you have these elections that are very doubtful, and then the person who is elected take it to mean the premium to do whatever he wants to do, where even obviously things are not happy with certain policy directions, but because don't matter, then you have people who at the end will be pushed to the very limit, and anybody who seems to speak their and who will get support. So when we are talking about governance, it's not just about the election. Yes, election is the process of getting you elected, but governance means that attending to the very needs that you have been elected to attend to. Most of our leaders are not attending to those issues. They are not creating the environment for private businesses to grow. They are not creating jobs themselves, and they are not providing the very basic amenities that the people need. In this sub-region, we still have hospitals where virtually there are no medicines. Even the people could not afford where the medicines are there. So when people are going through some of these situations, and they realize that the leader is not so much concerned about their suffering, and then they see their leaders also living in opulence, where you have leaders who virtually are living a parallel world. They are living a different world from the people who elect them to lead them. Then you have a problem of governance, because you are elected to solve problems. You are not elected to live a kind of life that is so distant from the problem. So, and then, of course, the canker of corruption, where somebody gets political power within few years and becomes super rich. And of course, there's no explanation for it than to say that you have used political power to amass wealth. And that creates room for people to doubt the democratic enterprise. When the democratic enterprise is not fulfilling what people are expecting of it, then they will begin to question if this way of life is actually worthy. So leaders must begin to pay attention beyond election. Once you are elected, yes, it's a mandate. But that mandate is not a mandate that allows you to do anything that you think you like. Of course, the citizens are the ones that are going to benefit from your policy. So sometimes you need to have an ear to listen to them, to listen to their concern in between elections. The involvement of citizens in policy, in governance, is very minimal in the region. So then they come alive during election, and during election, all manner of means are used to buy their way into power. So you see, in our own election, money speaks a lot. So when you use money to get to power, now you have to recoup all these monies. Therefore, most of the policies may even be geared towards generating the money to repay wherever you get these monies from, not necessarily to address the concerns of the citizens. So we are having issues of governance challenges because our leaders are assuming that by being elected, it gives them the license to kind of operate any policy that they want to operate. So that when the citizens are finding that the direction we are going will not help us, they are not ready to listen. And this gives the room to what we are seeing.
I see. Well, we're grateful that you've been able to spend some time with us. Dr. Ishmael, thank you for spending some time with us. You're watching The Pulse. We have more coming up on this and some other stories. Please stay. And this afternoon, the Public Procurement Authority is giving the approval for a transaction advisor to proceed to lead the process of identifying a suitable private sector entity with the requisite technical and financial capability of helping to dispose the Saglemi housing project, which cost the state some $200 million. It follows Cabinet's decision and directive to the Minister for Works and Housing. And the directive is that he's to dispose of the facility at the current value to a private sector entity to complete and sell the housing units to the general public to do further cost-cutting measures and to save the government some funds. But Joy News is learning that a new cost at almost $200 million after the assessment has been done will be required to complete the project. Sector Minister Francis Asenso-Boakye has been speaking to Joy News' Elton Brobe.
So Ghana has a staggering 1.8 million housing deficit, but yesterday a bold attempt was made to reduce it with the launch or the sword-cutting ceremony for the National Affordable Housing Program. The aim is to reduce this deficit and also ensure that people have access to homes, especially for those who are wondering where they will lay their heads after possibly going on retirement or whilst in active service. The minister who is responsible for this novelty joins us here. Francis Asenso-Boakye is also the Member of Parliament for Bantama in the Ashanti region. Honorable Minister, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yesterday was great. I mean, finally the sword cutting was done. The dream of people to own their own home could become a reality in the next 16 months. What went into deciding to go this way? Because we've witnessed in times past how government approached the housing industry and how government approached in terms of building to address the deficit. What went into deciding this model?
Thank you. As I indicated yesterday, this is not the first time government is coming out with an affordable housing program. We experienced one under President John Ejikumpufo, where 5,000 houses were supposed to build in 6 towns in Ghana.
Right.
But it didn't achieve the expected results because of issues associated with the project conception and funding. It's an issue of Saglemi, which also didn't achieve the expected results.
I guess we'll come to that very soon.
That's okay. When I assumed office, I thought it was important for us to review these attempts by successive governments and why they have not been able to achieve the expected results. And one of the things that we found out is that government First of one was that there was no serious feasibility studies that were conducted for the last two major affordable housing programs, and therefore we didn't really establish the viability of the project before we committed funds to it. For instance, the issue of that of President Kufuor affordable housing program, when President Kufuor left office, it was easy for the new administration to abandon it,
right?
Because no dedicated funds was good for that. The same as Saglemi. It's obvious that not enough work was done in terms of feasibility studies and all that. Secondly, we realized that for the two projects, it was the responsibility of government to find land, infrastructure, and the housing units itself, including the sale of the units. All these were going to be done by the government.
100% government responsibility.
Yes. But this one, there's a complete departure. This one, government is only subsidizing these affordable housing homes so that it becomes affordable, so to say, for the ordinary Ghanaians too. How did we come by that? We realized that statistics shows that 60% of Ghanaians require some sort of assistance from the state to be able to access housing. That 35% can actually not access housing at all, even with government support.
Meaning they can never own their own home.
Of course, I mean, of course, but that's reasonable. Even in America, a lot of people, there are even homeless people in America.
Right.
Exactly. So, and only 5% of Ghanaians can access their own house, build or buy houses on their own without support. So, government decided to target the 60% of Ghanaians who needs government support. And how can government support? We look at the various components of housing construction. The cost. Land is key.
Right.
Infrastructure services on the land is key. But these are the areas that we thought government can easily absorb. Of course, government has some public land that we can leverage on, which we are currently doing. The Pokuasi land was a government public land, which the president decided that let's use it for housing for Ghanaian people. And the infrastructure on the land, roads, electricity, water, and sewage, drainage. These are traditional responsibilities of government.
Right.
So we are leveraging on it to reduce the cost of construction. It's believed that these can even constitute about between 30 to 40% of the construction cost. Once that is reduced, then it becomes affordable. So that we invite the private sector to come in and build and sell. Okay, that is the model.
That's the model, right?
And that is the prevailing model across many parts of the continent that we are using. Because we all acknowledge the important role of the private sector in everything that we are doing. So that government and the private sector will form a partnership to produce these affordable homes. That is the striking difference between what has been happening in the past and what we're currently trying to
do. So in the past, government contributed everything. Exactly. Now government is contributing only the land and the other amenities that should come with it. And it is the developer to now provide the rest.
Exactly.
That is how come we are seeing, for some, the pricing appears to be on the low side compared to how much.
Of course, because we believe strongly that it will contribute to the reduction of the construction cost by up to 40%. Okay, so that will mean that the price of the building can also be reduced by up to 40%.
We'll come into who qualifies and how somebody can apply to own a home when it is done, hopefully in October 2024. But yesterday we were told that the entire sum runs up to $550 million US. Is that the figure?
Well, I don't know who gave you that figure. I didn't say that.
Right.
But what I know is that government funding of the infrastructure aspect of the project is going to cost the state $47 million. $47 million. That is the infrastructure side. The rest which is the housing units itself, are going to be funded by the private sector entities. Okay. They are going to raise their own money and build and sell.
All right. So the amount involved, I mean, this has been worked on by a cross section of the public, especially those who are looking forward to owning them in the future. But then also some have also questioned why you would not put that resources into completing, especially the Saglemi housing project, which has been outstanding for some time now. Why wouldn't you want to finish that, sell them out before starting a new one?
Yeah.
But what is your response to those who are demanding this clarity?
Okay, that's a very good one. But since you have jumped into Saglemi, it means you are not coming back to the.
No, we'll come back. We'll come to look at the details in terms of
the issue of Saglemi. It's not a simple matter,
right?
And if you give me time, I'd like to provide some information,
absolutely,
so that people will understand it. The government of Ghana in 2012 contracted a private developer under a loan agreement which Parliament approved, for the contractor to construct 5,000 affordable housing homes in Saglemi at a cost of $200 million.
Right.
Everything was Parliament approved, contracts were signed, implementation agreements were signed, and all that. At the end of the stipulated completion date, only 1,500 houses had been produced out of the 5,000. And even that 1,500, they were at different stages of completion. Some were at 90%, some were at 5% foundation level. Okay? And none of them, even assuming one of them was even 100% complete, nobody could even live in that building. The place were not habitable.
Even as we speak?
Of course, even then and now, the place is not habitable. And why am I saying that? There's no access to water, there's no access to electricity, serious sewage challenges there. So there's no off-site infrastructure where you are connecting water from a water source to the site, no electricity connection to the site. So it's not habitable. Okay. Then it was there that the previous minister realized that something was wrong, and police were invited to investigate, and after the investigation they recommended for prosecution of certain individuals. But when I assumed office, and that was the time that the investigation had been completed and the court processes, I wrote to the Attorney General to ask for permission to going to start the process of reviving the project,
right?
Regardless of the court proceeding, which the Attorney General gave us the go ahead. Then we put together experts, to advise us on how much it will cost and all that. Then we realized that connecting water from the nearest water source to the site to cater for the 1,500 housing units was going to cost government $30 million. Water alone. In fact, Ghana Water Company their estimate was even higher, much higher than Community Water and Sanitation. And these are public agencies. Electricity, you got the estimate from ECG, $8 million to connect electricity from the nearest source to that site.
Or outside the already $200 million that had gone into it.
Yes, the $200 million had been spent already. Yet they were only able to produce only 1,500 who were not habitable. Okay. The estimates they provided for off-site infrastructure alone, we needed $46 million to provide the off-site infrastructure. Now, apart from that, there are on-site works. Okay, these 1,005 units that are at various stages of completion. In fact, some had deteriorated, needed to fix some of them and all that. The estimate was that from AESL, you needed almost, it was $29 million. There is a serious sewage system there that was not fixed. That one is 8,000.
So you are looking at almost $100 million.
There's a serious drainage challenge, without which it will be very difficult to live there. That one is $5 million. So the on-site works alone, including some amenities which will make it possible for people to live there, like school, like because 1,500, if you put people there and you don't build a school, it will not make sense. Exactly. So when you put all that together, it was going to cost the state $140 million.
$140 million
to be able to revive the Saglemi affordable housing project. And even with that, look at the distance. It's more than 2.5 hours from Accra to get there. Assuming government had the money and used that extra money to fix it, who is going to buy that property and live there, especially in that majority of Ghanaians are working in the city center? It's going to be difficult. Meanwhile, I had the program that I had presented to government, which we were able to launch yesterday. It's going to cost government $47 million to produce 8,000 affordable housing units. If that is done, it will be unprecedented. No government has successfully done that. But because it's a public-private partnership, government's commitment is just $47 million. The rest is going to be invested by the private sector, and they will build and sell. So that is the difference.
That's the difference.
Let me ask you a question. If you are a manager of state resources and you are confronted with these scenarios, $47 million to produce 8,000 houses at a location that is just about 20 minutes drive from the city center, and $140 million to complete 1,500 units at a location that is 2 hours, 30 minutes, and even more from the city center, where will you put your money to? At a time that is difficult to raise funds globally, after COVID and the Russian invasion of Iraq.
Well, I mean, from my own point of view, I think that in terms of value for money, you go for the new initiative that you launched. But again, the question people will ask is, so therefore, what happens with Saglemi? Is it going to just be left like that?
Earlier, I had come out to announce a cabinet decision, and I think President, when he was speaking, even confirmed that. Government thought it would be a good idea to invite a private sector entity to come in and invest. A private sector entity that has the financial standing and also the technical know-how to be able to change the whole project and make it attractive. Okay, there are other lands, as part of the Saglemi housing project that they can take advantage of and do new development, build a whole community, and make the place attractive with other amenities.
All right.
Yes.
So today, for example, we're told that the PPA has opened up.
Exactly. We sought the approval of the PPA to give us the chance to select some reputable transaction advisors to lead the process. We have started the process. Very soon, once we select it, the transaction advisor is going to guide the government or the ministry through the process. Because it's important that we ensure transparency and accountability at every process. I remember when I first announced that government is seeking a private sector entity to take over and complete it. Some people, say that we are going to sell it to family and friends and all that. That was quite unfortunate. Nobody's interested in that. But we are interested in bringing a private sector entity that has the capacity financially and the technical know-how to take the project forward and revive it and make it a viable project.
Well, and I guess the issue relating to whether or not those who were at the helm of affairs at the time did a good job is the reason why they are before court.
Exactly.
So let's move away from that and then now look at the National Affordable Housing Program. And then the feasibility studies that in your estimation was not done right in terms of Saglemi. This project, and I've heard the use of local materials for the building, the issue about water and electricity. Have all of this been done to ensure that it does not suffer what previous projects have?
No, like I said, thorough feasibility studies were done. In fact, it was a requirement before Finance Ministry will commit funds to. And after the feasibility studies, it went before a panel of experts who sat on it and approved it before the Ministry of Finance committed funds to it. Of course, I did mention the use of local materials. That's one of the strategies we want to adopt to address the housing deficit, housing issues in the country. Because one of the reasons why it costs so much is because all our building materials, raw materials, are imported. And it's become even difficult lately because of the current global crisis.
So what kind of indigenous raw materials are we talking about?
I'm talking about, for now, the burnt bricks, clay, which we have huge deposits in many parts of the country, in the Ashanti region, in the Central region, in the Bonafo region. But unfortunately, they are still expensive.
Right.
Okay. It's because the industry is not developed. We want to use this project as a catalyst for people to realize that, hey, this burnt bricks can be used. People develop interest in it, develop the taste for it, because many people don't want to use the burnt bricks. If you're able to create demand for it, it will also create supply for it, and you can have mass production, and you can enjoy economies of scale. And in that case, the prices of these raw materials, burnt bricks, will come down. Then we develop the raw material, the local building materials industry, so that the average cost will come down, and it will help in our local housing industry.
State Housing Corporation is one of the contractors or one of the developers that have taken advantage of this and is working on. Apart from the state housing, we understand that the others are from the private sector.
Yeah. They are all from the private. State housing pretty much is a private sector. It's owned by the state, all right, but it's in the market to make profit. Yeah. And
the 60% that you are targeting, that you want to address their housing needs. Now let's look at the cost. Studio around 20,000.
One bedroom
20,000. 20,000. Two bedroom 30-something thousand.
34,000.
And then 3 bedroom. So what is the financing arrangement? Is it a case that's going to be a one-off payment, or they'll have to pay it within a certain period of time?
Okay, so the Ministry of Finance has a program called Home Ownership Fund. That one is a blended financing arrangement between the government and some selected banks. That government subsidizes the banks to provide mortgage arrangement, mortgage facilities to workers or any person who has a dedicated source of income. Okay, that fund is going to help finance 10% of these housing units.
Okay.
Originally, the idea was to do more, but we are all aware of our current financial situation. So government is not going to be able to provide a lot more subsidies as we had envisaged. But for now, 10%. We have worked with the unions, many of them have decided to provide offtake for these housing units for their members, teachers, nurses, GUTA, Trades Union.
Okay.
Yesterday.
So it's not only for the public sector?
No, not only for the public sector. Yesterday, GUTA came there with a bus load of its members, very excited and ready to offtake. Okay, and the developers and the banks also have their own arrangement for certain payment arrangement, so that as many people as possible can access these.
So in this case, how do you protect those who are really deserving of it? Such that it doesn't go into the situation where somebody probably may have so much resources.
No. It's very important, and it's one of the things that we have put in place mechanism to avoid, because you don't want a situation where rich people like Elton John go and buy 5 states. Yeah, but you put in mechanism. First of all, you have an income-based eligibility criteria.
Okay.
So that if you earn a certain amount, you'll be disqualified. Secondly, you have a no resale policy. Once you buy it, you cannot sell.
And if you want to?
If you want to.
You sell it back to the developer?
Well, you cannot because the idea is that you want to avoid a situation where someone will just come and buy 10 and resell it to. So once you buy it, you cannot sell.
Okay.
Third, nobody will be allowed to buy more than one.
Okay.
Yeah. So it happens in many countries. When I went to South Africa, and this one was not just affordable housing; it was actually free housing from people who were living in slum areas. The government there had provided, some basic housing units for them. Yet people wanted to sell them. Okay. So they had put in place this mechanism to make sure that you cannot resell and all that. So we learn from what is happening, best practices happening in other parts of the world, and we are replicating that here. And
again, one key issue is about political influence.
Exactly, but this one is the private sector that is selling. So if you go to Dev Traco, you have your money, you have your qualified, you sell. I cannot say that I'm the minister and ask Dev Traco to give it to my cousin or my party boy. No, they won't allow it because it's private sector money that is being invested. Yes.
So today we've been told about the price range. Do you have the guarantee that in October next year, when the project is done, the price will remain the same?
Oh yeah. And one of the reasons why have an unfortunate situation of having to quote it in dollars. That's the reason, because it's just for planning purposes, given our current situation. But nobody is going to pay it in dollars. You pay that equivalent. So the dollar, facing it in dollars, you will be able to check again these price fluctuations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable, let me now take you into your previous life. When you worked in the US, you worked in a similar environment.
Yes.
I'm looking at the long-term solution to our housing crisis. And as a minister, what do you consider to be the long-term solution? Have we started the process already with this housing program?
We started the process. I want to look at this in 2 ways. The use of local building materials. That is crucial. Because as long as we import building materials, even transportation costs alone, Elton, is with respect crazy.
Right.
And after COVID and Russia invasion, you all know the impact on transportation costs. Then again, having to import it, use foreign exchange to import it and all that has a huge burden on the final price here. So that is one of the reasons why we want to use this program to encourage the use of building materials, so that Ghanaians can even develop the taste for it. Many people wouldn't want to use the bench bricks, for instance. Many people.
If you go to places like London,
they do.
That's what you see.
They do.
Especially.
Exactly.
The residential areas.
Where the school in the US that I attend, every part is covered with bench bricks. And even the ambience is amazing. And when you use that in a very hot area, you don't even need air conditioning there. So it comes with a lot of benefits. But gradually, we have started program with, for instance, the producers and some event organizers who want to do sensitization across the country so that Ghanaians will develop the taste with a view to developing the market for it so that the prices will come down. That is one. The other side is also financial. Financing is an integral part of housing development. And you mentioned that I was involved in housing development in America. Yes, it's true. The advantage that they have is that they have a strong, credible mortgage regime.
Okay.
Okay. The couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to speak at a program in Abuja of housing ministers. And I was telling them that one of the things that the finance ministers can help with is to help secure long-term capital. In Ghana, all the banks that we have, they are all commercial banks.
Right.
Their main source of income is the deposits you and I put there. That cannot give you a long-term mortgage financing. But if they work with the development finance institution, what they call the DFIs, and for instance, you get commercial bank to be able to attract some long-term funding for commercial bank, that they can provide mortgage for over 30 years, 35 years.
Right.
Many Ghanaians can access homes because your salary, maybe you'll be paying about a third of your salary every month, so you complete it in 30 years. That is why in America and in Europe, in the UK, anybody who starts working after a couple of years
can own their own home.
Can own. And you are in, then you are that is the long term. Look at long term financing. The other side I've mentioned the local building material. These are the two key areas that I believe government must look at.
And is there a plan to extend this to the other regions, knowing very well beyond Kumasi and beyond Accra and Kumasi, land may not be as expensive as we have it here? Do you have the plan of making it happen in the other regions?
Certainly, but this program has two projects. Initial two projects. The second one is in Kumasi, the Day Swap.
Yes.
Which is after Durban area. That we are currently working on this feasibility studies, and we'll get the approval, and then we do it. The plan, when it's successful, means that we will get to replicate in that parts of the country, so that people can also benefit from those areas as well.
My final question will be: you've given yourself up to October 2024.
Did you say October?
We had 16 months. 16 months.
Yeah, by the 10th of next year.
By the 10th of next year.
The plan, if all things go on well, the plan is that by the 10th of next year, end of next year, we would have finished about half of the units, so that people can start living in them.
All right. So, for example, today in Parliament, the committee that has oversight over the ministry, the Works and Housing Committee, held a news conference. The ranking member said that he is hoping that this will be done within the time frame provided, and that it will not end up like the other projects. They also asked whether parliamentary approval is required for some of the works to start. I don't know whether you want to respond to these questions.
Yeah, I want to respond. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, if everything goes well, we should be able to complete, as many units as possible, so that people can come. We have structured in such a way that we don't want to wait till all the 8,000 units to finish before people can start living in them.
Right.
Yeah, we have staggered it incrementally, so that at a point people can live in them. I don't think it's the Western Housing Committee. It's the minority side of the committee.
Exactly. That held the news conference.
Parliamentary approval. Yes. There's only one parliamentary approval that is before Parliament, and it's because one of the developers is a foreign company,
the Moroccan
company, and therefore, because it's a Moroccan company and taking part in this, you have to seek parliamentary approval. But the rest are not foreign companies, so no need for parliamentary approval for them. And the project itself does not need parliamentary approval. It's not a loan. The government of Ghana money. We don't need parliamentary approval to start the project.
All right. Yeah. So my final will be, so as you look into the camera, what are you telling the 60% you've identified? What is the message for them as they look forward to this big project? So
this is a government public-private partnership. Government has provided the land and the infrastructure, so that the private sector has been invited to come and build and sell. It's purely a private sector sales arrangement. Anybody who is interested, the companies are there: State Housing, Devs Traco, Rehoboth, from Pulse and Adoha. The numbers are running all over social media. I will encourage everybody who is interested to call these companies and start having an arrangement with them so that you can access your own home. This is the best time that you can access a home for yourself.
Mr. Minister, thank you very much for the opportunity.
And thanks for staying with us here on the Joy News channel. Tomorrow, of course, many of you out there, some of you at home, maybe at the beach as well, with family and friends celebrating the Founders' holiday. But as you do this, there's another group of Ghanaians who believe that this is the time that they need to dedicate themselves to spend some time at least keeping our environment clean. They're calling it the Ghana Litter-Free Initiative and Clean Ghana Initiative. So let's speak to the gentleman all behind this. Kelvin Okran is founder of the Monsoon Foundation, I believe, and Gidisu Charles Doji is the environmental consultant for the foundation as well. Thank you, gentlemen. I hope I got the name of the foundation right, or if you can just get the name right. That's it, right? Monsoon. Okay, right, yeah. So let's talk about the idea. Why would you dedicate this day? I mean, many, of course, in Ghana would say it's a Friday, it's a long weekend. Let's go relax somewhere and have fun. Why are you making this all about cleaning Ghana?
Well, we thought it wise that our founding fathers, they came together to collectively, contribute, to Ghana's independence. And for that matter, we on our side, we should also take the initiative to also come together and do something.
Right.
If you look at it typically, or holidays or special days like this, we get to relax. And we don't have anything that brings us together. So the Founders' Day, we thought it wise to get everybody on board. Let's clean our environment, which is one of the critical things that the country, is facing with respect to sanitation issues. So basically, that's the reason why we
thought it.
Yes.
I must personally congratulate you on what you're seeking to do. But why now, Doji? Because that's the question that always comes up. There are so many occasions and opportunities. Why choose this Friday to do that?
There's a popular song we used to sing. I think every Ghanaian student knows it. Young Aran Assassin.
Yeah.
A line in it says that Adrumini won't so say your baby at us. So at any point in time, in every generation, there are peculiar problems that
people,
leaders in the generation must identify and solve. Our founders, as my colleague said, during their time, there was need for independence. They were engaged in freedom fighting.
Yes.
They fought to, bring us out of colonialism. And that was then. That was what needed to be done then.
At the time, yes.
But now, we are faced with different challenges. And key among them is the waste mismanagement, which has become a crisis situation. If you are an expert in the sector, you will know that the waste situation poses more threats to us than even terrorism. Because you cannot talk about flooding in the country and leave out the waste situation. Yeah. So we think that Founders Day offers a unique opportunity where we need to reignite that spirit of patriotism, nationalism, because we need to do something to change the story. If Nkrumah, J.B. Dankwa, Akwaje and the others, their bases, if they were to be alive now, I believe they would have been solving such problems
that we are facing today.
Exactly.
But who do you have on board, Kelvin? The point about getting more people to support this patriotic act, as you're terming it. Do you have the youth on board? Do you have schools joining you? Or are you now opening that invitation to anybody at all to come?
Well, interestingly, we have the traders, which is Makola, to do coming on board. We have the assembly, on board. The mayor, is on board.
Oh, okay. So you have the local authorities also joining hands.
Yes, and interestingly, we have actually extended an invitation to the current sanitation minister to also join us on that day.
You're giving her too much work already. She's just assuming
we feel this is the time.
Yeah.
I mean, like my colleague, right? We can't wait. We have to do something about the situation, and the day gives us the reason to do that. As mine,
Okay, if you want more, I mean, since you're speaking about, you know, the district assembly and other institutions joining you, how about the general public? Because we need to get them also involved. How can they participate? How can they be a part of the program? And which areas will you be, so that anyone who wants to join probably could do so?
Actually, our interest is to sustain a cleanup exercise across the country. And we are looking at working with duty bearers in every community. We are looking at working with everybody, because everybody generates waste. Our first exercise, which is tomorrow, we are working with, as my colleague said, the city authorities. We've extended invitation to the regional minister and the coordinating council. We have invited the fire service, the Ghana police. We have invited Kantamanto Traders Union, Makola, Rollins Park, Tema Station. We've invited Kimbu Senior High School. They live in the neighborhood. We have also used other platforms to invite the general public. That's the reason we are here as well. So we are hoping that by virtue of this interaction, the public will also be informed and also join the exercise.
Kevin, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, it will interest you that the Labour Minister also, when he heard about this exercise, decided to also engage his workforce to join us on that day to do this exercise.
Let me find out. Are you seeking to bring back? I think we've seen this before, where we have a national, sort of like every month or periodically. That's a day that's declared, and then we shut the businesses, do a little cleanup, and then is that something similar that you're targeting?
Yes,
we are looking at every week.
Yeah, but however, the main target, the main goal of this exercise is to encourage waste segregation, for which we believe that waste, we call it green gold, because waste is not waste
as we see it.
As you see it, it's a resource. So we'll want to use this exercise to clean up and also to sensitize the people, for which we're looking for. We've come up with technology where we can use this plastics into blocks. So we want to use those blocks to solve issues with infrastructure issues with schools and the streets. So we'll build schools with this for the community, and also our other, rural setting. Yes.
So if I get you right, the waste that will be generated tomorrow, or I mean that you would collect eventually tomorrow, you're not just throwing it off. No. Is that what's unique about what you're doing?
Waste materials are useful. But before you can put them to use, you need to properly manage them. What we are recovering tomorrow, they have been mismanaged. They are the waste that have been dumped in drains. Before we can benefit from waste generated, we have to separate them at source. Waste management doesn't start when the waste collectors come to collect it. It starts when you, the one who has produced the waste, begin to sort it. It begins from the one.
But we don't have, unfortunately, even the structures are not there. So you don't move to a public place, for instance, as you would have it in some other societies. They tell you, drop maybe plastics here, the paper bag here, or maybe something.
Yeah. So the vision.
We don't have that. It's a challenge.
We don't. So the vision here is to be able to provide these bins, and dot it around the city. So that people, and whilst we educate people, people will also have these bins, plastics, cans, and then the other, to be able to dump their waste in there.
For instance, look at what's on the screens right now. And this is what you find in most parts of Accra. It's part of our Joy Clean Ghana campaign. And you find this in some parts of
the reality is that
the capital.
The reality is that the Ghanaian mindset is that assembly or government must provide the bins for us to put the waste inside, which is wrong.
Okay.
Because the materials are useful. So you, the one generating the waste, you have to find ways of separating them so that if anyone wants to come for it from you, the person has to reward you, pay you.
Okay, so it becomes money.
Yes.
It is money. It's not that it becomes money.
So
waste
money,
is money,
right?
yes. But because we don't manage it properly,
Yeah.
so we end up paying instead of us being paid. So we are proposing a revolution in the way waste is managed in the country. Instead of people waiting, like you were saying, that the bins and the infrastructure is not there.
Okay.
We don't have waste management, excuse me to say, system in the country, because a proper waste management system has to start with waste generation. Then along the value chain, we have different activities along the value chain. Right. From generation, we have the storage, transportation. All these things cannot be done by one person.
So they should be bringing in money rather than you spending.
Of course, every assembly in the country must generate money from waste management. It is an error that assemblies are spending money on waste management. It is an error because actually, it doesn't sit well with me. Excuse me to say, it doesn't make sense to me.
Maybe because you are the expert, so you're very passionate about
yes, it doesn't. But it doesn't sound well.
Let's get some of the stories. And Kelvin, I don't know if you've encountered such stories where people are cashing out, quote and unquote, out of proper management of waste. Do you have people earning some money, decent living out of that?
Yes, yes, in other jurisdictions,
Right.
and even in Ghana.
Yeah.
People are also cashing out, and some people are also going through the difficulties with respect to some of the waste management company, because they believe that when you engage them, they'll tell you that government, you know, is
so
only,
we are always expecting government to come
you know,
through.
but in this case, government is maybe concentrating on one company instead of, you know, spreading, you know,
to other people.
Waste management company. And that's really is a big problem, because if you go to the sub-metro, or let's say waste management departments in
most of the assemblies, yes,
right.
across. Yeah.
The issue they have, they don't have logistics.
They don't have anything.
They don't, and it should never be the case, because if this company that government is resourcing, is no more, you know, just for 1 hour, the entire country will be full of filth. So it is a serious issue, you know, and I think that must be addressed. And I mean, people are using waste for other
even energy. Some people are generating lots of energy.
But back to your question again. Yeah. In Ghana, a lot of people are making earnings out of waste. We know of people who are recycling waste. We know of people who go about with their tricycle to take waste from places that's the main service providers.
And now mostly the focus is on the
scrap
and also the
sachet. Because you see, because somebody has created value for that particular waste category. Because of that, citizens have naturally responded. And that was the point I was making earlier, that when we create value for the waste, everybody will manage his or her waste properly. So the money that is being centered, I don't want to, but the money that is being given to a particular, put at one place, they should send the money to the assemblies. There are recycling plants that we can bring to every assembly. We are talking about industrialization. We are talking about job creation. We are talking about keeping our communities clean. We are talking about creating value from what has become a nuisance to us. All we need is to empower the assemblies locally. Why do we concentrate,
just at the center and controlling everything?
And the money is not going into the right.
Here's what I want us to do. We'll talk about tomorrow's program, where the public would meet you at and where other institutions will be meeting you. But before that, what's the future looking like for this campaign that you're coming up with to rid us of this whole littering around and all of that? Kelvin, let me start off with you. What's the plan? What's the future?
Yeah, so the plan is to provide adequate waste bins, and then also to intensify our sensitization you know, agenda.
Right.
We'll be working with corporate institutions.
And I hope this won't just be an Accra.
No, it's nationwide.
Right. Okay, right.
You know, we'll be working with the corporate institutions too as well, because they have a lot of clients, so that they will do some level of engagement. We're looking forward to also talk to you know, to give us a point as a station where, for instance, in your house, if you segregate, because we must start from somewhere, in your house, if you segregate your wastes, I have issues, people telling me, we segregate the waste and we don't know who to give to.
Yeah.
So we talk to some institutions to give us space so that they can drop it there, and then we can pick it and then utilize it. But the most important thing is that we want to use waste to create value, like solve issues, you know, infrastructure issues that we face. Like we said, we want education.
Yeah.
Free education, infrastructure is a problem, but these plastics can
even build houses.
Can build
I've
schools.
seen some videos online of how people fill sun into some of these plastic bottles, and they use them to put up buildings.
And this building blocks is solid blocks, which last longer than the regular blocks.
Right.
You know, it's not even with that model.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that we should be able to use the resources around us, you know, to solve the problems that is out there. And that's the future. That's what we're looking at.
Right, I see. What more is there to it in terms of
this campaign has been ongoing for some time now. And the focus is to sensitize the public about the relevance of waste, its usefulness, and we also want to help provide the needed support systems. As he was saying, we are talking about recovery centers and see how we can provide consultancy services to institutions like yours, so that instead of you paying for your waste, we will let
rather be getting money for it.
We will let management know that the organic waste that you are generating here, we can actually generate gas from it for you to use in your institution. We can also have a way of helping institutions manage their waste in a way that will benefit them. We are looking at working with schools because we believe that in every community there are schools there. And almost in every community where there's a school, there's a possibility that in every home you have somebody who is in school. So when we are able to transfer the knowledge and impact the school system with our campaign, we believe it will spread across.
Do you have offices all across, or how can people reach out to you just to join this campaign? Do you have any contact details, or maybe websites or social media?
So our contact is 027 27 27459.
You'd have to be slow with that so people can get that. Yes.
027 27 27459. Social media handle is Monsom.org across.
It's MONOMORG
at all the social media.
Right. Because people need to reach out and people need to join. So let's talk about tomorrow as we wrap up. For you, what are you looking forward to? Who are you expecting, and what do you have to share with the general public?
When you go to Accra Central, as we speak now, almost all the drains are choked. And there's stagnant water in almost all the drains in Accra Central. So tomorrow we are looking at removing the fields to ensure that there's free flow of stormwater. Otherwise, the possibility of flooding happening in those
which we've seen already.
It will be worse. It will worsen if nothing is done about. So we are appealing to the general public, particularly those residents in Accra. Even if you are not resident in Accra, Accra Central is where everybody in Ghana, almost everybody in Ghana, even West Africa, come to Accra Central to do business. So we are appealing to the general public that even if you are not able to come, you can support us with logistics. You can support us to feed our people. You can support us in various ways.
And the volunteers will be around there.
Thank you. So we are appealing to the general public to come on board so that we can together clean the capital city and make it habitable, at least, if not for nothing at all, to prevent this diarrheal diseases.
That we have.
Prevent flooding and to also ensure that our communities are clean and safe.
I'm still looking forward to making Accra the cleanest city. You believe that, Kelly?
That's our vision.
I mean, we can.
We can. We should.
It is not beyond us.
Yeah.
You know, it's not beyond us. I've heard people say, "You sure you want to clean? You can handle the whole of Accra Central by yourself?" I said, "Yes, we can. It is possible. We just have to put our minds to it, and collectively, as we're doing. I mean, if we come together, we'll be able to achieve, you know, greater things.
Right.
But notwithstanding, if people want to support us, you know, the whole of Accra Central is quite big.
Right.
The number that we shared is also a Momo number. You know, they can support us with a token.
Maybe you have a message also for those who might want to join you tomorrow. Any special message to them? What's your invitation?
Tomorrow morning, as early as 6 a.m., cleanup begins in Accra Central.
Okay.
And anyone who wants to join, just drive there, pick a car there, come there with Okada, come with your working gear and your working tool.
Your brooms, bring it.
Come with broom, come with pickers, come with shovel.
If you don't have some, when you get there,
when you get there, we will get you some to work with. So
amazing.
The general public is invited. The AMA boss has assured us he will come.
Okay.
The EPA boss himself will be there.
I see.
And several other sector stakeholders, sector
agencies
stakeholders will all be there. Fire service and several other people will be there. NADMO and all those people.
So everyone has to come.
Yes, let's do this.
Indeed. We need to do that. Support the campaign. And let's see you there tomorrow, right? Okay. Now, illegal mining activities have rendered many water bodies in Ghana unsuitable for both domestic and industrial activities. The situation has affected communities which are mostly rural and are unable to afford water filters. Fortunately, mechanical engineering students of the Sunyani Technical University have come up with a pedal-powered water filter system to solve the problem. Love FM's Kwesi Debra has been interacting with them and has more in this report.
The machine comprises a filter attached to a bicycle mounted on a metal platform. As the bicycle is pedaled, the movement of the wheel draws water into the filter. The filtered water is then collected in a container.
Right there we have a reverse osmosis machine. It has been purposely created for rural areas where we cannot have access to clean water. So what the machine does is it purifies the water from particles. So you can use this machine, who is powered by manpower. So you can just place it at your borehole or your riverside and you paddle it. After this stage, you get clean water. What the semi-permeable element will do is like it will remove all the particles from the water. So you can maintain this semi-permeable element by opening it, you clean it. Maybe after 1 month you can clean it and you fix it back onto the machine.
As a bonus, the machine can be your go-to fitness training equipment. Reporting for Joy News, Kwesi Debra.
And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. We'll be right back after this break. And that's all we have for you in this package of The Pulse. I'm Lester Sugan. Log on to myjoyonline.com. More stories there for you. Next is Let's Talk Showbiz. Thanks for